Blue Moon Courtroom Spectacular. 3 p.m., 3:15 really, but get there at 3 just to get a seat. Courtroom 300, it's the biggest courtroom in the House. We have a visiting judge, a retired judge, Ted Grove, who is a pioneer of the Columbia treatment model with the diversion court for drug treatment court, coming in from, he's worked in St. Helens, apparently lives in Clatskanie. He's 70 years old, born in January. Looks like a really nice guy. He is a public person about overcoming alcoholism. And the newspaper is so proud of him. He's going to be my new judge on my case where the district attorney of Clatsop County, Ron Brown, thinks that my recording of Osarch Orak shouting at the domestic violence advocate and I on speakerphone was not allowed to be recorded legally under one-party recording state. So I've written a nice 11-page letter to the judge explaining the police interest in protecting one-party recording as a Oregon revised statute law, unless there's some even greater expansion of those rights. Those are rights that actually back the blue, help the police to have the ability to record phone calls. And there are many additional factors, such as I was announced to be present, and the advocate put me on the line when she pressed speakerphone so I could hear the verbal abuse. And I've urged the county to investigate this type of abuse, as well as find ways to curtail using abusive men to scream at domestic violence victims. So the recording is itself quite interesting. We have a young prosecutor under the guidance of possibly Don Buzzard or some of the more senior district attorney deputies will be prosecuting this misdemeanor at 3 o'clock. They want to rearraign me around Veritas versus Schmidt. So this is kind of like you can't have your cake and eat it too type of a situation where the judge basically there's many procedural errors. The court failed to notify me there was a court date, therefore a warrant was issued. Just on that procedural error alone, I could say that this should be dismissed. They set me up to be arrested, and that itself, if they can't get their paperwork straight, they really need to slow down and don't work too fast, don't make mistakes like that. But anyway, moving along, Veritas comes along July 3rd to knock out their case. And so now they want to rearraign me on a different charge, which is basically a different side of the statute. Originally, in my reading of Veritas versus Schmidt, I thought 165.540 was eviscerated. And in some ways it is. And in some ways the case is made for it to cut down the Berlin Wall, basically. The case is made, and when I was researching Judge Ikuda, it is kind of interesting that she's a Federalist Society member. So I'm finding the fusion of the radical left wing and the radical right wing in the Veritas case is crazy, because Veritas are largely thought to be a right wing, but they do a lot of undercover investigative journalism, which is just my bread and butter. And it has really occurred to me that I watch so many Al Jazeera and Sky News investigations and international media where people are bringing secret cameras to talk to corrupt CEOs. And Michael Moore, people say, like, kind of pioneered that in America in the early 2000s. But that type of reporting is my bread and butter. I admire those journalists so much, but they're often fleeing jurisdiction and jumping back to the UK or wherever they go. And what laws pertain to them, who knows? So it's almost as if they act as if they don't care, because their journalistic imperative to protect whistleblowers, to protect victims of violent crime, victims of assassination attempts, that sort of thing, is much more a higher prerogative than some petty, like, pro-secrecy law that protects perpetrators. So it did occur to me that, number one, I knew one-party recording applied to that call, but number two, I'm immersed in investigative journalism so much so that I would not frown upon a recording that exposes wrongdoing that is of a serious and grievous nature, which is continuing to put homeless people in danger and promote a culture of victim blaming, rape culture, domestic abuse, discrimination, civil rights violation, disability violation, etc. So it's just going to be a fun case. The guest list is profound. I have got Doug Klink, my skateboarding cool Aquarius guy friend, is coming. He'll probably look snazzy. He always dresses cool. Jack is coming. He's planning to look snazzy. He's going to wear his forestry gear, whatever that means, like a big hat or something, because he likes to do stuff with forests and animal protection. And he's a military veteran from Iraq. I got to brag on him. I mean, like, what the heck? He's a captain. And maybe George will come if he's not out of breath and too sick. He's having some respiratory. And then shout out to the mayor's son, who evidently watches my channel. He was like, well, I'll just find out on your YouTube. So this video is basically for him. Todd, if you want to come along. And you know, whatever, Blair Henningsgaard, the other mayor's son, you can come too, but I doubt you would, because I know you don't want your wife to think you have a crush on me or anything like that. So yeah, I'm just a crazy leftist or whatever to you. But, oh, and anyway, back to Veritas, the animal rights angle of the Veritas case is what's so exciting. You've got animal rights activists getting into slaughterhouses, filming this abuse, filming this factory farmed agriculture. Sorry about the fan. I know that's making some interference. I just remembered. But why do animals have more protections than humans? We're talking about real human women being abused by this man. Veritas is upholding these surreptitious recordings as a way to, and we'll go back. What is it? Wasden? I think it's Wasden. And then I just scanned this case up, or printed out this case to give to the district attorney and the judge. State v. Lissy, which goes into deep history of the legislative history of 165.540, and I think they're going to really enjoy reading that legislative history, and maybe I'll find as good a summary elsewhere. But let's see, who else is coming? Oh, a housing activist, a really cool, independent, politically minded lady I know. Who else? Oh, maybe a homeless activist, or yeah, that's a lot so far, but I think there are going to be more. There are many people that have said they're going to come, and I'm worried they're not going to remember to come. So I'm going to send out some kind of like text blast of get people a little motivated. And I was down at the river talking to my homeless friends who made some pretty salacious comments that had me in stitches, and it was good to let the laughter take over the despair, because at the end of the day, women don't have equal access to homeless services. Women have to get through. And what I just found out is Osarch Orak just gave himself a raise again. He's now bumped his salary up to $65K, and Erin Carlsen gets $65K, and they're all hurt that Alan Evans gets $200K. And so all y'all people profiting off the homeless while you treat low-income and homeless people and almost homeless people on the edge of eviction shabby, your time is up. We're on to your game. I ran into a perfect stranger the other day, said, keep the pressure up. And I'm like, how do you know what's going on? This is getting crazy, to the point that I'm walking through town and people know that something is up. But Ozark's doing these little drive-bys where he'll like ride by on his grown-up man tricycle with his basket, and then he'll just like stop and stare at me like, and it's so creepy. Like, and people really feel like I need to bring out that angle that he was flirting with me. He was making eyes at me. Then he's going on attack mode against George. Then he's like trying to get me in his office alone. And between him telling the homeless women to suck his blue balls, and me not wanting to be alone with him, not wanting to have him make all these eyes at me and be flirty, I really do definitely fear for my safety. And what's really a funny irony is the district attorney who wants to prosecute me for exposing that Osarch Orak likes to abuse women verbally and trash talk them. actually signed off on the warrant for Ozark's pistol. So when Ozark was arrested doing a burglary with a pistol in his backpack, and he wouldn't just give his gun to the cop and be like, sorry, cop, yeah, I am a felon with a firearm, Ron Brown signed the warrant so Officer McNary could take it out to the firing range and test his pistol. And this same county wants to tell me I'm supposed to feel totally comfortable as a gun violence crime victim running up into gun-toting soup kitchen dude's place where he's running around being mean to everybody, letting this atmosphere of verbal abuse and the N-word and racial slurs and neo-Nazism and all that flourish. Yeah. But I mean, maybe Ron Brown is more friendly towards felons having firearms in soup kitchens. That's what I said in my blog last night. And since I never do a dirty joke, and I am a very prim and proper Catholic schoolgirl, I am just going to indulge in the most hilarious joke my friends were cracking at the river. They said I should motion for a change of venue to Annie's Saloon. And if y'all don't know, Annie's Saloon is I think it's a naked dancing bar or a strip club or something like that. So I should motion for a change of venue to Annie's Saloon. And I'm like, what does this point underscore? Is that Ozark has a raging crush on me. Probably Ron Brown does too. Probably they want me to win because that's what they're into, is strong, intelligent women. That's their fetish. So I have to like slam dunk this. And the crude phrase is hand their blank to them, okay? And it would just sort of skip to the point of what they're really trying to get out of this situation, like why this is so titillating to them to prosecute me. And this poor little prosecutor, I spoke to an attorney's assistant yesterday who was like, I think he's just taking instructions from the ladies higher up in the office, and he's not able to really act on his feelings, and he can't act, and he has to keep going up to them to ask if he's allowed to do this and he's allowed to do that. And God bless him for being in I mean, there's some actual serious crime in our county, like child rape. Like somebody we know from the Lifeboat community is now in for child rape. They've been in for strangulation. They've smashed. There are people out on the streets now who have done violent assaults on women who are not getting prosecuted. So me getting prosecuted after trying to report violent men in the community, it's really just time to, I don't know, move on to new models, I think. But anyway, I'm not going to go on too much longer, but that's the shout out. Come to court tomorrow at 3 or 3:15. I think it's only supposed to go to 3:45, but for some reason I think it might go till 5. And it's going to be fun to meet this new judge. I'm worried he could be a grump, but I don't think he's going to be. He looks like quite a nice guy. And actually, I just like St. Helens and Scappoose because I've got family from there. They've kind of got, they're like smart like the big city, but country because they're outside they're just like outer region of the city people. They're country city people. And I'm really happy Judge McIntosh apparently appears to be getting a vacation. I'm sure she needs it. One look at their calendars and their dockets, and it looks maddening. And then the defender crisis, it sounds maddening. So, I mean, they should dismiss because they can't get a defender. They should dismiss because they failed to notify me of the court date. They should dismiss because one-party consent is not illegal. They should dismiss because of Veritas versus Schmidt. They should dismiss because of the prosecutor's bias. They should dismiss because of, oh, and I heard Officer Kenny Hansen thinks I have the right to defend myself against Ozark's verbal abuse, presumably with a camera. And I'm like, why do we have a right to defend ourselves with a gun but not a camera? I mean, America, what a freaking crazy country. And so Officer Hansen was like, oh, you can come to my retirement party. Because I think he feels like being like Ozark's little ninja is like kind of maybe put a rift in our patched up friendship after he kind of gave Chris Duffy a free pass to sexually assault me. So that we have like a little bad rift. But I met his little boys and they're really cute and charming. And one works for the sheriff, one works for the port. And he was just like, "You're one of my favorite people." He said this to me and Steven like a week ago. And you guys are my favorite people, some of my favorite people to talk to in town. And then somebody's like, "Oh, he's two-faced." And I'm like, "Of course." But the thing I always suspected on St. Patrick's Day, when this whole shenanigans began, is that it's like, okay, Ozark, you really want to go after her? Okay, if that's what you want to do with your life, let's see how that turns out. I literally thought Hansen was also possibly sarcastic about Ozark's. And then when I see Ozark's crazy emails like, "She's a sociopath, a narcissist," and I'm like, those aren't crimes. Those are opinions. Those are sort of like pseudoscientific psychology theories. Oh yeah, and back to like 10 days ago when we're trying to have this hearing, 10 days ago before it got postponed, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. She has a document that contradicts the email sent on the same date. The handwritten document appears to be backdated with a whole new revision of ideology to coincide with Ozark's demonization. This is Erin Carlsen. So, it's not a nice word, but falsifying documents is a problem in their case, punctures a hole in their case, and it is a credibility problem, and it's a duty of the prosecutor to let the judge know when they find out that their documents have been falsified. So, since Judge Peterson's assistant had written the prosecutor and me back about the court date revision, or like, what are we going to discuss? Are we going to have motions? What are we discussing? Case management conference is evidently what we're having. I like had to write back Saturday morning. I was like, okay, Oregon professional rules, and thank you to Michael Strickland for your YouTube channel on professional code 3.3, the Oregon revised code of professional something for lawyers. It's just like how to be a good lawyer in Oregon, okay? So if you find out your evidence is false, you have to tell the judge ASAP, and if not, you are doing a bad. Your bar could be tarnished. Your bar could be called into question. Your bar, and another thing I'm learning as I study these professional regulations is like they're all supposed to snitch on each other. The second you know the DA is doing something dodgy, you as an attorney are supposed to go to the bar. Or if you know a judge is doing something dodgy, and do they snitch on each other? No, they have an anti-snitch culture within the system. And how perverse is that? So I've basically broken the snitch culture by reporting Kirk wintermute for lack of due process when he came at me with his conflict of interest, trying to intimidate me on behalf of Ozark, making lies up about me and repeating those lies. And I've reported Judge McIntosh for being harsh to victims of, gender-based violence against women, like, okay? And then I've reported Judge Matthias for colluding with a sex offender's attorney to railroad me, threaten me with jail time, invade my medical privacy on my computer, and imply that I wanted to be assaulted, much as McIntosh did, but it was quite severe, okay? So McIntosh is, just called me a liar to my face, which is her opinion. That's good for her to have her opinion. And then, did I report anyone else? Oh, Chris Palmer, the divorce attorney from Gerhardt, who now does a little temporary pro tem, sort of substitute judge work for coming at me with basically a baseball bat in this psychotic rage on behalf of Chris Duffy, the Meals on Wheels guy from Seaside, slamming me down and rubbing his penis on me against my will as I struggle to break free, okay? And victim's assistance, it was taking his side, and I'm like, what are you, victim blaming assistance? So this district attorney's shouting over the phone, "You called K2!" I had the media calling him, why won't you prosecute? He admits to wrestling her. Why won't you prosecute? Why are you leaving a dangerous man around the vulnerable, the elderly? Ron was quite agitated on the phone with me, quite frightening and shouting at me. And then I capture in my letter to the judge also that I call a different time and I say, well, is Bo Peterson there? Because I remembered him to be professional and respectful, fair, possibly. I was actually thought Ben Pickering was undercharged. That was like my problem. I was like, wow, he almost killed me, and that's all he's being accused of is like assaulting a cop, basically. And they barely even go into his attack on me in the charging sheet. So I thought he was being undercharged at the time. Now, knowing what I know about the system, I probably would have just let Ben kill me and never speak to cops again, just like a proper anarchist. Because when they demonstrate this much mental confusion, duplicity, malicious prosecution, this sort of anti-fascist perspective of do not speak to cops ever. Because I've bet as a crime victim where I'm repeatedly assaulted, kidnapped, raped, strangled, blah, 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 from these carjacked, from these horrible men, it puts me in a dangerous position where I do feel that I must rely on officers. And if the officers they lost the file of Corey Quint putting his hand around my throat. And then I've got two conflicting opinions. The DA's office say they don't have the case, and then the police say, no, we sent it to the DA. So somewhere along the line, I think Ron Brown threw away my file because he's decided, hey, have at her. Everyone can hurt her or sexually abuse her in this county. Because we'll never believe her, and we'll never prosecute anything that happens to her, because we've decided she's got one prosecution, and that was Ben Pickering, and nobody else is ever going to get anything, because they basically consider that if you've had a prior traumatic experience, you must be a liar because you must be confused, which is what Hansen told me in the meeting in like 2020 or 2019. So, they took the picture of the cop off the wall at CCA. Maybe they're kind of getting the picture that, okay, maybe this is kind of intimidating. They were just like, it just opens up the space. Like, they had all these pictures. And then, what else? So, probably nothing will happen. It'll be like either a dismissal, a reschedule 2 or 3 months out, some talk about whether or not I get an attorney and whether or not I get to represent myself. Basically, I'm going to say I want to represent myself pro se so I can get the DA to offer me a plea bargain, which evidently 94% of cases get settled by plea bargain. That is so disgusting. To me, that is such a coerced situation that nothing goes to trial, almost nothing, 6%. So, I saw the Multnomah DA really, really lowball Ben Pickering. They were like, oh, we'll give you 10 hours of customer service the night before trial. And he's like, no. I learned a lot from that. He was a genius. But anyway, I gotta go.